I've been going through my completed projects a bit lately and spent a lot of time looking over my Khorne Helbrute conversion. At the time I was really proud of it, mainly because the video was the only one that I'd made up to that point that got any views. But now that I have a more clear vision of what I want my Khorne army to look like, I see things now that I wish I would have done differently. The paint job could be a bit better, less muted and more red, and it doesn't have anywhere near enough skulls on it. And then I thought, you know what? Let's run it back. Let's just build a new Chaos Dreadnought. I regularly peruse eBay and bit sites to slowly complete shopping lists for larger projects, and the Space Wolves Venerable Dreadnought caught my eye during one of these searches and made me want to build a new Dreadnought. I thought it would serve as a perfect base for a Khorne Dreadnought, and I could piece it together from scratch. It's rare that I have the receipts for all the bits to one project, but since I bought the bits all at once, I do for this one. So let's run down the parts list and see what the damage was. I went with a regular las cannon, the Space Wolves skull head and Space Wolves chest plate. I chose the regular Venerable Dreadnought exhaust because it has 4 exhaust pipes instead of 2, so twice as cool. I went with the Space Wolves torso and side plates because they have the spiky trim that looks similar enough to Chaos Space Marines. And again went with the regular Venerable Dreadnought for the leg plates. The Space Wolves Dreadnought legs have clawed feet, which I thought would really fit that aggressive Khorne aesthetic. And the Space Wolves skull trophy also fit that Khorne style, so I picked that up too. And the missile launcher is a leftover bit from the Dreadnought that I bought like over 15 years ago, so I'm going to call that free. So in total I spent $23.17 in pounds sterling, I'm sure that sounded very American, which at the time that I bought the bits converted to $26.93 USD. A brand new Space Wolves Dreadnought cost $60 USD, so I saved $33.07 by piecing it out instead of buying new. Even with international shipping costs, I still saved over 20 bucks. Pretty cool. So naturally, I then made a purchase that would negate any kind of savings. I spent 25 American doll hairs shipped to get this Lord of Skulls dozer blade. Ooh wee, that's got a lot of skulls on it. I do plan on using it on a Khorne Rhino conversion as well, so I guess I can split the cost between the two projects, right? Makes sense to me. So I went about assembling the Dreadnought. This might have been the first project I tried using plastic glue as opposed to super glue, and I highly recommend it. It basically welds the parts together. I'll be using plastic glue a lot more going forward. I had to shave off the gems and Space Wolves iconography from the chest plate. I thought about adding a Khorne symbol to replace them, but decided I was adding enough detail elsewhere that it would be best just to leave it bare. I also need to remove the wolfy bits on the side plates to make room for when I add the separate side armor plates over top. So the side armor plates have the spike trim like Chaos armor, so I want to remove the interior and leave just the trim like I did on my original Khorne Helbrute. An issue I had on that first Helbrute was that the width of the knife blade was just wide enough that it would stretch that plastic slightly and snap the delicate trim. So I thought that I might be able to fix that issue by drilling a bunch of holes in the armor plate with my rotary tool and then play connect the dots to remove the inner part of the plate. It kind of worked. I bet you were wondering where that Lord of Skulls dozer blade would come in. I did faces and arms and flesh on the first one, but this needs skulls. I can't be getting comments asking if it's a Slaanesh Dreadnought. I can leave no doubt. I'm making Oyumaru mold of the skulls. If you're new around here, subscribe! Oyumaru is a thermoplastic, which basically means you heat this plastic up by dunking it in boiling water and it becomes pliable. You can press that onto something you want to make a copy of, and then when the Oyumaru cools, you peel it off and compress green stuff, any kind of epoxy putty, or you can even pour resin, and boom, you got yourself a copy. I use green stuff because it's a little bit flexible when cured. I'm using a silicone shaper tool to really press the green stuff into the details of the mold and keep it thin to fit under the trim of the side armor plates. The mold wasn't a perfect reproduction, with the eye sockets of the skulls being pretty shallow, but it's still pretty good. I did my best to trim the skulls to fit inside the armor plates. I glued them to the torso and then cut around the edges until the top armor plate sat flush. I did cut a bit too much in some places and would need to do some gap filling, which I think ultimately adds more depth and improves the overall design of the skull inserts. I took leftover bits of the green stuff casting and skulls from the Citadel Skulls box and glued them into place. After comparing the amount of detail between the green stuff copies and the plastic skulls, I found the smallest drill I had and used my rotary tool to drill out some of the green stuff eye sockets. And then I did the same process for the other side plate, obviously. Also, I added a mixture of skulls to the leg armor. With these new additions, there were still some gaps that needed to be filled. Instead of using more green stuff, I used white Mildaput so I could tell the difference between cured pieces and soft putty that could accidentally be smashed down with my big thumbs and have to be blended in again. The skull trophy would need the Space Wolves gems removed, and I have the perfect Khorne symbol to take its place. I found that using the flat end of a cylindrical diamond bit in the rotary tool does a good job of sanding spots flush, and that way I don't have to fuss with a knife blade and run the risk of slicing my friggin' fingers open, which I've never done. Never had band-aids on my fingers in videos, don't check into that. Might have initially glued the Khorne symbol to the wrong side of the trophy, but I fixed it before the plastic glue cured. In an attempt to make the Space Wolf skull look less blatantly Space Wolves, I glued on some fiddly little horns I had in my bits box. The missile launcher has a nice skull front and center, but the last cannon wasn't looking corny enough. I have this Khorne shield I'll probably never use that has a couple of skulls I can harvest. Unfortunately, the chain won't completely cover the last cannon, so I used jeweler's chain that is about as close as you can get to scale. I glued the chain in place and then used that cylinder diamond bit to grind down a small section of the chain so that the last cannon still fits onto the body as intended. Time to paint! I'm base coating everything red with Army Painter Pure Red. I glued the arms to skewers to more easily paint them before assembly. The skulls get painted a generic beige that's almost indiscernible from the light gray primer coat. Everything that's going to be silver is base coated black. I apply Vallejo Umber Wash over the skulls. The detail of the skulls and the green stuff copies isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Probably didn't need to drill holes in those eye sockets. Oh well. I go over the red base coat with the Flesh Terror's red contrast paint to add some depth. The gold trim is painted with Retributor armor, then hit with a mix of Army Painter Flesh Tone and Dark Tone washes. For the silver parts, I use Army Painter's Plate Mail Metal, and then use Army Painter Dark Tone Wash. Since I put this Dreadnought together from purchase bits, I don't have a base. I stole one from this Age of Sigmar model I plan on turning into a Berserker, but that's a different video. Sometime, maybe. I used my go-to basing method of cork and construction sand. I've switched to gel superglue to adhere the cork because it doesn't seep through the cork and onto my fingers like liquid superglue that I still use to glue down the construction sand. I glue the feet and legs into place and continue to fill out the base. Then it's just a matter of gluing all the remaining pieces together and painting the base. I think it's my lifelong love of mechs that keeps me coming back to Dreadnoughts. This one's a little less demonic looking than my previous attempt, maybe not Helbrute enough, but I think it still fits. I'm a lot more satisfied with this one, and I think it's a clear improvement from the first one. Not to say that the first one is terrible, but I do think that it could use a bit of a touch-up. Maybe I can make a quick video upgrading it. I'll probably do it anyway, but let me know if that's something you'd want to see. I hope this video was helpful, maybe entertaining, and if so, diving headbutt the like button. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later.